Hi everyone, welcome to Bible Bites. This week I want to think very quickly about the idea of naming. Now, when Jonathan was born, we decided to give him the name Jonathan after lots of debating and deliberating and thinking which names do we prefer. We had a whole list and we didn't know, even up to the moment when we were in the hospital, what name we were going to give him. But when we decided on Jonathan, there was a sense of relief, and there was also just joy that this was good and right, because right from the moment that we first held him, we recognised that we were holding in this little bundle a person, a human being who is worthy of dignity and respect and honour and love and care. And right from that moment onwards, what Jonathan means to me, that name, has only grown and increased. So whilst we've had a whole variety of experiences over the past year, he's nearly a year old, which I can't believe. We've had lots of times where we've been up at night and I'm rubbish when I'm really tired, and we've been trying to get him to sleep and it's been exhausting. And we've had times where we've sat there and suddenly he's done something for the first time, or he's smiled for the first time, or giggled, or stood up, or something like that. And we've just been wondering and amazed at him, as well as exhausted. And all these feelings and emotions and memories over this past year somehow are gathered and collected up into this one name, Jonathan. It represents something unique about our relationship, that we have a name that we call him. A philosopher named Martin Buber described two types of relationship. He described the I-it relationship and the I-thou relationship. The I-it is like the relationship I'd have with a car or a door or a pen. It's an object, it's me using an object. Whereas the I-thou relationship is about two people. It's about a relationship between two persons. I want to look very quickly at a biblical perspective on the importance of naming and personhood. And I want to look at Genesis chapter 3. There's so much going on in these few short passages of the Bible. So we can't comment on everything, of course, but what we can think about is verses 20 and 21. And they describe how, and it says, the man named the woman, or named his wife, Eve. And when I read that, I thought, that's amazing, because up until this point, I'd always read the words man and woman as Adam and Eve in my head. But it's only at this point, near the end of this sort of garden scene, that the man actually names his wife Eve. And what's even more interesting is that as soon as Eve is given a name, we then read in the verse after, verse 21, that Adam appears as a proper name, not just as Dirt Man, which is the literal meaning of Adam, but as Adam, a person. And then even more exciting for me, and you might think this is reading into a little bit, but just these subtle changes in names are really important, just as Abraham goes to Abraham, or in other parts of the story. We see just after Adam names his wife Eve and then understands his own personhood as Adam, we then see that God's name changes very subtly from Lord God to Lord on its own. And that is the Lord in all capitals, L-O-R-D. And it is the personal name of God, the one that when we read in Exodus, Moses at the burning bush meets God in the burning bush and he asks, who shall I say sent me? And it's the personal name of God. And it's this Lord, that I am that I am. It's the intimate name of God. And just as, so the link for me is that just as Adam recognizes his wife's personhood, Eve's personhood, and names her, so then he understands himself. And so then his understanding of God becomes personal and intimate and closer as well. I see in that very subtle movement there the beginnings of the idea of love God and love your neighbour. And that you can only really love God when you're loving your neighbour, and you can only really love your neighbour when you're loving God. That there's something in the mutuality of our relationships, there's something in the knowing and loving of the other and according dignity to the other, that we truly understand ourselves. The Bible, for me, is the most profound work of literature, because it's not just a work of literature, it's God speaking to us and telling us about who we are and what we're made for. And one of the things that we're made for, that's made clear right at the beginning, is relationship. And the way we describe that is through naming and using names of each other. So what's a practical implication of this? Well, when we don't name each other, when we give other people the names of nouns and we don't use their personal names, well, we do something where we take away their value. We don't accord them the dignity of personhood. And then when we do that, we actually rob ourselves of personhood as well. And we harm ourselves as much as we harm others. And so what would be a practical implication for today? I think with all the things going on in the world at the moment and the way people relate to each other, we certainly need to recognise the personhood and the value of others. And especially with social distancing, when we can't physically be together, how can we recognise the value of the other, and how can we hold on to relationship? Well, we could just start using people's names more intentionally. And that's a challenge that I set to myself as much as to anyone else, is to remember the names of people I see in passing, or who I don't talk to often, and in the fewer conversations I have, using names more purposefully, just to reaffirm that sense of I see you and I recognise you. And in so doing, I know that I shall recognise myself and understand myself in relation to God more clearly. One simple suggestion, let me know if you think of any other creative ideas for how names could be important in our life and in our worship. Thank you.